Dear friend. Let's discover more of who we are together. Love, Haylee and Amanda.
Well, what did you guys think about that new intro?
Well, I personally think that it's precioso.
I mean, guys, it's still us, Haylee and Amanda, but we have the new name, Dear Friend Podcast, which I love.
The new intro.
I know. The song on the intro is from our band, Sister the Band. It's from a new song that we're going to be putting out in our second album, and it's called How I Imagined. And I just
had the best vibes. We had to use it.
Yeah, it had that swell intro to it, and then into the guitar, and I just thought, oh, that's sweet.
I know, and it's us playing, and we made the little pencil sound at the beginning.
I know, because it's like correspondence between friends, which I think is precious, and it's the whole thing about the name Dear Friend. I love the whole feel of it. I hope you guys like it too. We're so excited.
We just wanted it to feel like intimate and personal, and that you feel like you're here with us, like you're our dear friend. You can share it with your dear friend. Hopefully it spurs conversations with your friends, and
it's a conversation between her and I, which I consider you a dear friend.
Thank God.
Maybe the dearest of all.
Deer in the headlights.
So today we wanted to talk to you about why we're Dear Friend Podcast now.
Why we even have this podcast and what it means to us and the why behind it.
Yes. And so like we said in the little bonus episode on Friday, the name came to us from our graphic designer whose name is Aaron Garcia, great graphic designer. But that it was the vibe that he was feeling from our episodes, like our podcast that he was listening to, that it was really inclusive, like we were saying. And something that Haylee, and I want you to elaborate on this, Haylee, but something that you really care about is that people, when you're around, that people feel included and like that you're a very inclusive person.
Yeah, I don't like for people to feel like strangers longer than like 1 second.
Yeah.
It's something that really like, it makes me feel so like myself to just immediately say something, even if it's a perfect stranger, to all of a sudden make them feel like, oh, we can just skip over that whole awkward part and here we are.
Let their guard down a little.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So that's something that I think we both want to make our listeners and our friends feel, whether you're new, whether we've known you for a long time, that you can just be yourself. And, if we see you sometime, that you feel like you're our dear friend, because that's why we're doing this.
And I bet that's why your favorite restaurant is that place in Jackson Hole, Wyoming, Glorietta, because their logo is
"You're a stranger here, but once."
Yeah, and I think like that's one of Haylee's big things, and mine too.
Yeah, totally.
But her, I mean, that was like something when we were talking about this. She really loves to make people feel like they are not, strangers. They're not included. She's just you're very warm and open to people.
It's something that I think I get from my grandfather. He was like an usher at our church, and they used to call him like the friendliest usher or something, because he never met a stranger,
Yeah.
And I like going places with people, but I never really feel when I go out that I'm alone.
You always feel like talking to someone.
I have, and we can expand on this too, but kind of what we talked about in that episode about how like the role of social media, but we read that quote about Mr. Rogers. It's just like you have a slight to where like you have this moment you're meeting someone and you can think the worst about someone and that this experience will be not great, they won't like you, we can't, or you have this feeling of possibility, which is what I usually feel, and it's like that you have a moment right there where you choose to see the best or see the
and
good,
just,
and
let them in.
Yeah, and then like you could have this great experience together, and it usually does when you see somebody and you open up and break that wall.
Well, and you just don't know who you're meeting.
Yeah.
You know, there's so many times that you and I have been in a situation where it's like, we could just be like, nice to meet you, great, and go on with our lives. But then there's, for some reason, when we choose to go there and we meet amazing people that are still our friends. I'm thinking specifically with you, Nancy Wonders. You were just, she won a painting of yours at an auction. You went to deliver it, and you could have just been like, have a nice day, thanks for you know, bidding on my painting. But you guys started a conversation, and now she's a wonderful, dear friend of ours.
Yeah, dear friend.
Oh my God, I didn't even plan that.
I honestly, I've had some of the craziest experiences come out of talking to people on airplanes.
Oh, me too. There's two people I still keep in contact with that I met on airplanes from probably over 10 years ago.
And you know that time we went and stayed at in the south of Spain, and it was like they treated us like queens.
And it was just some guy you met on an airplane who was like,
we decided to talk and connect, and we weren't strangers anymore. And then it was like, of course I would come stay in your personal house.
No, he had a hotel.
In the hotel.
He had a hotel, and he was, that sounds creepy, so cool. Like a guy that she talked to on an airplane, but actually he had just come from America and was saying that the hospitality he experienced from people was so amazing that he wanted to pass it forward. And so he said, if you ever come to the south of Spain, he was like, I work at a hotel in Cadiz. Is that where it was? And he was like, and you can stay there. And so whenever we went, we called him up. You called him up. And it was such a fun experience. Yes, you just don't know.
Yeah. There's definitely benefits to giving people a chance and breaking that stranger wall down.
Yeah, and allowing them to be a dear friend.
Yeah, and so I think that is definitely one of the vibes and feelings
parts of our why.
Yeah, that we care about as our why, but that is kind of a why behind this podcast specifically too.
And the other part, which we made part of our intro, you know, it says, dear friend, let's become the best part of, you know, of ourselves together. Let's learn to grow together.
Become more of who we are.
Yes, and something that we loved about that quote, becoming more of who we are, is from that book that we quote all the time, A Simpler Way. And Haylee, I think you have.
I do have it.
Do you have it open?
Isn't that so convenient?
Always.
It says,
she's so convenient.
I am convenient. It says, we ourselves engage in change only as we discover that we might become more of who we are by becoming something different.
Okay, can we just talk about this for a hot minute? Like, really warm.
It's getting hot in
really
here.
Warm minute. This quote, and this is why it's part of our why, that's why it's in our intro for the podcast. This quote really resonates with me, and I know you too, because I just feel like it's 100% true that when you feel like changing will help you become more of who you are, not changing into a different person, discovering more of who you are, opening up to more of who you really are, you will make those changes.
Right, because it feels like aligned and like you're just unraveling more. You're not going against something.
You're not taking away, you're adding to. And I think
it's that word becoming that just it really encapsulates everything, because it's a continuous journey. You're not trying to change and switch to something else. You're just becoming continually.
Yeah, we're all on that journey. And I think something that at the beginning of this podcast, when we started it last summer, we really wanted it to be about finding joy and inspiration. And that's still at the heart of this, right? That we are finding things and understanding where joy comes from in life so that we can follow those paths, but also finding inspiration to continue to grow, right? And so in the podcast, always that being kind of the center point, this community has been created where we are learning together. Haylee and I are not experts on self-growth, and nor will we probably ever be. It's just about a conversation, and that you're listening into as well and contributing whenever we get your feedback. But you're in the conversation with us, and so we're all learning to become together.
Yeah, and that's also why like to have guests on. You know, we're probably going to end up having a guest maybe every other episode or something like that, because number one, we're not experts, but also we don't want to just have all of the conversation by ourselves. We want to hear about people that we really respect and and we love what they're doing, and that they are carrying along, holding both of these things: joy, laughter, lightheartedness, but also continuing to become their best and whole selves.
And it's like something that we've talked about over and over, from David White, who's another person we reference all the time, the great poet. He talks about that metaphor of like the keyboard, right? That here we are, like life is like a keyboard, and it is where most of the time we're having to play the same notes every day at our jobs, in our relationships. It's the same thing over and over and over. But he's saying that we are a full keyboard with all these keys and all this different stuff that we have to offer. And he's saying that you've got to find ways where you can play all the chords and notes and all that kind of stuff. And so in the podcast, something that has been in every episode pretty much is that we're all trying to figure out how to play our full keyboards, right? We have these jobs, we have these relationships that we're in that we're not getting out of, right? That we're playing these notes over and over and over, and that's fine. But we also need to find areas in our lives where we can add in those extra chords and add in those extra keys that make us feel more like ourselves, more whole, because we're playing to all of our different strengths and passions and not just focusing in on this tiny piece of what we have to offer, right? We are so much more than that, and we have so much more to offer than a couple of notes every day.
And I think that also kind of goes along with like the ha-ah moments, which stands...
Yeah, you need to explain that, because we don't really explain it much.
Number one, our names are Haylee and Amanda.
H&A.
Again. And so we love that we're holding this kind of paradox of joy, you know, laughter, lightheartedness, in the same moment, in the same conversation, with inspiration, meaning, you know, even sometimes sorrow and suffering, because we're growing. So I like that the ha and the ah, which is, you know, joy versus inspiration, can be in that full keyboard.
Yeah.
You know, like it's not just...
Because no one's just serious and no one's just lighthearted. Life is this mixture.
And they shouldn't be separated.
No, absolutely. And sometimes you're like crying through your laughter and laughing through your crying.
Yeah, and a dear friend's along the ride for all of it.
Exactly.
Another thing that I really wanted to say and talk about was, when you look at our new branding, you'll see that it's these kind of hand-drawn imperfect circles.
Ooh, I love this.
And it's not just arbitrary, obviously, as branding shouldn't be. But the circle is something that we feel like is really representative of like inclusivity and bringing people together, and also that inner circle, which I didn't even think about inner circle. That's a whole nother thing.
That is,
you know, who you let in your inner circle is very precious that you take along for your intimate journeys.
And we feel really honored that you guys let us into your inner circle by allowing us to have this time with you every week. You know, time is the biggest gift of all that you could give anyone. So you giving us your time every week, like we feel... that makes us feel special, like we're in the inner circle, and that you're in ours.
And that second circle, and even on some of our logos, it has even more circles, is that, you know, we want our circles to expand, and we want to keep our inner dear friends dear and special, you know, and hold them close like a little pod. But also, we want our relationships and these meaningful conversations and the way we treat people to then kind of ripple out, you know, like an echo almost, you know.
That's what I love about those circles going out from the middle one, is it's like an echo from like everything you're growing with in that inner circle is echoing out in all the other places in your life.
Right. And it even like is a metaphor almost for like how you start kind of close into the things that really, really matter to you, like your why, you know, and then everything else kind of ripples out from that, but you've got to take care of and start there, you know. So we also don't want to forget our first episode in June and the place where we started and that feeling that we started with. No matter how we grow with this podcast, and we have so many wonderful intimate plans,
I know, guys,
we want it to ripple out, but we also want to make sure that at the same time we're staying close to the things that really matter to us.
Yeah, I think Haylee and I, we've been dreaming so much with this podcast, and I just feel like the future's so bright with this because we are doing something that feels right and it feels good. And I think, you know, my personal why is about being the good in the world, and it's about me being good, but being an example of good so that other people see it and know that they can also do that and be that way. And so putting something good out into the world is something that I am completely 100% motivated by, that it's a rippling effect of positivity. It's like hits all my spots.
And just being like consistent and pure and good and being that way all the time. So
and I think just because the word good can be misconstrued, it's kind of like what we were talking about last week. It's not that false positivity. It's not like, I'm good, everything's fine, I'm so perfect and happy. It means like things are coming from a good place. Like I'm trying to be the best version of myself, and that doesn't mean a fake version of myself. That means that when a situation arises and maybe there's some negative things in it, like anger, like sadness or whatever, I don't leave those things undealt with. Like I try to make sure that they are good things on my journey that help me to make myself better, you know, and to help me keep becoming.
Right.
And so I never want somebody to think when we say good or trying to be a bright spot, it doesn't mean like fake bright spot. Hey, come over here if you need to smile because you're crying. It means like, no, life is full of these emotions. It's a dichotomy, and it's how everyone is.
I really think that I know that we've already mentioned the Mr. Rogers quote, but like it really is that you want to be someone that the world can count on when they come to you. You're trying to see the best in them, and not false positivity, but like really believing that there's something wonderful in us and in the world, and that you want to call that forward with people. And that's a beautiful thing.
Well, and something else that, if you don't mind, I'm going to go on a little story.
I'll be back.
Okay. No, this is something that when I was younger, when I was 19, this is like a very pivotal moment for me, that I realized the type of person I wanted to be. And let me explain. And I'm not going to go into great detail, but you're going to understand. There was a situation where I was kind of being attacked verbally and accused of things that weren't true by people who were older than me, that I respected and held in high authority and really looked up to. And I remember when this happened, they kind of confronted me about things, but they didn't even ask me about them. They just accused me. And so it wasn't true, but it was just fact to them already. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And so I remember I went to my father, who I consider very wise, and I was crying, obviously, because I was super hurt because they were attacking my character, right? Which I felt like was unfair. And so I sat with him and was crying with him, and I said, Dad, like, am I that way? Like, what they're saying true? And I said, because I don't think people would be rude and mean to me on purpose. Like, I don't think that these are just bad people. Like, I was like trying to glean something from, like, maybe I was missing something in my own character. You know what I mean? Like maybe they were seeing something in me that I didn't see. And my dad was like, babe, he was like, first of all, that you are thinking that way means that they're wrong. because
that you're self-reflecting and
yes,
trying to...
that I was self-reflecting and trying to give people the benefit of the doubt, right? And you know, I didn't handle that situation perfectly. Like, there were many years where I had to deal with like forgiveness around that situation and everything like that. But something I learned from that moving on is when situations came up where somebody did do something that I thought was hurtful, I really tried to see, like, this is not a bad person. This is a bad moment, right? And that we can all be good people. And I was listening to the Brene...
I was about to bring that up.
Yeah, I was listening to the Brene Brown podcast last week while I was on my run, and her guest, do you remember the girl's name?
Yes, Dr. Susan David.
Yes, Susan David, Dr. Susan David. She said this quote, and it's like how I feel, but it was the most perfect verbiage around it. And she said, like, you know, if someone says I'm sad, or I'm like the worst person.
Oh, this is so good, y'all.
She said, that's so detrimental because you are not that feeling. That feeling is a cloud and you are the sky, right? Like, we have these moments where maybe we're not at our best. Maybe we didn't handle that thing right, but it is not who we are. And so in my life, I try to think when something...
I'm sorry. I don't think it's going to interrupt you, or I wouldn't do it. And today I wrote down a quote from that episode that she said, and I'm going to try to remember it exactly. And she said that you should use the wisdom of your feeling to guide you into your values.
Yeah.
And I think it's kind of what you're saying, like that feeling, yes, it did come up, but it's, what is it telling you about yourself? And then it should force you into your values about what kind of person you want to be, which is what you were doing.
Right. And I really think, you know, something I love about this podcast and this community is that we're all trying to figure out how to navigate this stuff better, right? Because I'm not saying I have that perfect. I'm saying, like, I have moments where I'm sure someone else perceives me to be horrible. Do you know what I mean? But it's not
impossible. But
it's not who I am.
Right.
Right? I'm having a bad moment or whatever. And so I try to give people the benefit of the doubt because I really do believe people are good at the core. And I think, you know, that's a huge reason for my why is that I think we are all capable of goodness. And it's a matter of knowing how to be good and working towards it, because it fights our nature a lot of times to do the selfish thing, to do the thing that makes, you know, us feel good or elevates us. And I just think, we're talking about our why about our podcast, and I think it's about what Haley's saying, like inclusivity and just like growing and becoming together, because we want to be good people in a bright spot in the world and not fake bright spots. We want to be actually trying to treat people with respect, trying to bring lightness into the world, because there's so many heavy, dark things that it can be overwhelming, but there's so much good too. And I want this podcast to be a good spot.
Just as a dear friend would be. We have another episode about friendship, and it talks about how a really good friend, you know, when those moments happen, because we cannot do this journey alone. You just cannot. And a dear friend is just along for all of the journey, to witness all the parts of you, and not to say, I only want this part of you, like the keyboard, you know? So I think that's why also our name of this podcast really suits us, because we're trying to hold all of it, and we want to be there for the journey, you know, and we want to be a bright spot, but not a fake bright spot. We want to know about the hard stuff, you know, and help each other get through it so we can all be that goodness in the world.
And we have some beautiful plans and ideas for the future once
we want to scream about them.
Yeah, we really feel like I said before, like in our flow about this podcast, because there's so many things about how we want to move forward. So again, I feel so energized by this project. every episode. I'm learning. I know Haley's learning. It's discussions that Haylee and I would have had anyways.
Really, it is.
About what we're reading, about things we're thinking about, and it's that we're getting to record them and share them with you and getting your feedback too. So it's exponentially what we would have already been doing, and it feels so good.
It really does.
Does.
I feel really grateful and happy and joyful and in the moment.
I do too. And we had the beautiful photographers, A Sea of Love, do all of our pictures, which I know we're putting out with this episode today. One of the portrait pictures that they did of us, but they're so creative. And when we had the photo shoot day, we were putting it on social media, like getting ready for it and stuff, because we were so excited. And it was fun because we had a vision and they have their genius and creativity, and it just
meshed.
Oh my gosh, the day of, everything was unfolding perfectly, to the point where, tell a story about Fountain Board and Table.
Oh yeah, so we've also been obsessing about Fountain Board and Table, this restaurant cafe in Dallas.
And they're known for their gorgeous charcuterie boards.
And they're so gorgeous, and we love them so much that we wanted their food to be in our photo shoot.
Yeah, like as a prop. Like we wanted to be having almost like a picnic with it.
Yeah, and also to eat it.
Yeah.
But so that morning we went to Uber Eats it because we didn't have time to go across town and get it. And it was just telling me
it was too far away.
It's too far, it doesn't have it. And then I like jumped through another loop and tried a different like delivery service, and it just said like, your order has been canceled, it cannot deliver. And so we were like, man, we just decided to do it without it. We were kind of bummed. So we're at the studio, the photography studio.
The photo shoot has started. They're taking our pictures. We're like posing in front of the thing, and this girl walks in, and we thought she was lost or something because she just walked into the studio that we had rented, and we were like, can we help you?
And she's like, is Haylee here? I was like, yeah. She was like, here's your charcuterie board from Fountain Board and Table. I'm Tina.
And we were like, what? We didn't order this. It didn't go through. And she's like, yeah, it did. I went and picked it up.
And it was like a little angel delivery.
I mean, that's a small thing, but it was like all these little small things fell into place. It was super fun. I'm pretty like, I don't feel photogenic, and I felt nervous about taking pictures, and they just made us feel so comfortable and beautiful.
Really good people.
Really good people. I highly recommend you guys go look at their website and Instagram. It's at A Sea of Love, SEA.
Which is sweet too.
Oh my gosh, they're so creative, wonderful. It's a husband and wife, so beautiful. So I feel like this whole branding experience and putting our new name together, like working with Aaron Garcia as the graphic designer, working with the Sea of Love as the photographers, everything has just felt like perfect.
Really,
100% came together, and I'm so happy with the name. Thank God for Aaron Garcia.
I know, we gotta give him all the credit for that.
We
didn't even come up with our own name, y'all.
Nope, that was all Aaron Garcia.
And this line that's going straight through that, everything's just been lining up. There's a new step that's going to be happening in our future.
Yeah, so Haylee and I got vaccinated, y'all. We haven't even talked about that. I got mine today.
We each have our first shots.
Yes, and your second one is when?
Next Friday. So in Friday. 7 days. Yeah.
And mine is April 1st. And so we know more and more people are getting vaccinated. The world's kind of feeling like it's headed towards normalizing a little bit. And we have been ruminating and brewing up some really great ideas for this podcast about events after the, things kind of come back to being safe. And
so that we can see some of you and meet you and make new strangers into friends in person.
And so we've come up with this really great plan that we're going to be sharing more and more with you throughout the next couple of months. Mm-hmm. And we're hopefully going to do the first one in summer. So we'll give you guys more information on that. Let's really quick talk about can we talk about our vaccine shots? I'm sure people will care about that. And I want to talk about it.
Okay, yeah.
Okay. We both got Pfizer.
Yes.
And my husband, Maris, he got Pfizer too today as well. He's on the same track. How did it go your first time? Like for your first, where was it? What was the experience? How did it feel?
Well, so mine's kind of a funny story, actually.
Okay.
Well, first of all, I just signed up everywhere in all my surrounding counties and just hoping, that I would get on the list. And
but you also have asthma.
I have asthma, so I was in 1B, and then it just so happened that FEMA also prioritized some zip codes, and I was in that zip code, so I had two things kind of, not working for me, but to put me prioritized. So I got the call, got the text. It is kind of overwhelming when you get it because you're already getting
you feel like
so
you're
much
winning the lottery.
And I was just like reading it and double reading it and double reading, like, this is real?
Yeah.
And then it was so funny. I called my dad because he had already had his, and I was like, is this right? Like, does this sound right? Do I go through? And he's like, listen, it took me about an hour and a half to fill it all out, but it's worth it, okay? And I was on the phone on speakerphone with him, and I did it in the amount of time that we were even just on the phone. And I was like, an hour and a half? Dad.
What was he filling out?
He was like, I just really want to make sure to mess up or like mistype something. And also, he's 70-ish, and he's not 70. I'm sorry, Dad. He's not 70 yet. But, him with his little cell phone and stuff, oof, I guess he just had trouble. Anyways, so he went to the same place that I went, which was at Fair Park in Dallas.
That's where Michael went.
And
Maris. God.
Fair Park is really large, and there's all these entrances.
So many cones.
Yeah, and so I'm like, oh my God, this is going to be so overwhelming. And the unknown of something like this, you just build it up in your imagination to be this crazy thing that it ends up not being. So I was over near the place that morning, but my appointment was much later in the afternoon. And I get on the phone with my dad, and I'm like, hey, just tell me kind of how you got there. And as I'm driving, he's giving me directions, and it's in the morning. And he's like, do you see the cones? And I'm like, yeah, I see the cones. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm in the cones. I'm inside. Oh my God. And like people start calling me forward. And I was like, they're calling me forward, Dad. Should I just go? And he's like, yeah, just go. Just try to get in. And I went, and I was like, guys, my appointment's not till later, but I just accidentally drove in. And they're like, oh, you're fine. Like, it's slow right now. And they just called me forward. And then it took no time, just like zip, zip, zip. I went through, they scanned my QR code. They said, are you Haylee? And I said, yeah. And then they said, you got paint on your pants. And then they stuck me with the needle. I didn't even feel it.
Great story.
Thank you.
Were you in pain?
Only my arm was sore.
Yeah, my arm is pretty sore today.
Is it?
Like, it's not like painful, but it feels like, when you get the flu shot.
Yeah, well, and also my sister-in-law, she told me, you just need to do a little arm workout because it kind of works the muscle out. Mm-hmm. Well, the problem is that I haven't done an arm workout in a really long time, so it just made me really sore.
More sore.
Yeah.
Like muscle sore and vaccine sore. Well,
what about you?
Well, okay, so I'm a teacher, and so they just started prioritizing teachers, and so
they should have been first.
I had been signing up anyway, so I was already on the list, and then once they started prioritizing teachers, I immediately got an email, and mine was through Parkland Hospital. And this is the funny part of my story, is that I got this email literally the day before, booked it because I was so excited, like I won the lottery. But I had forgotten that I had taken the day off that day to go to a doctor's appointment. Now, this is not any doctor. I was going to a natural doctor, a holistic doctor, because, and actually I should probably do an episode about this, but I have MTHFR, which is a gene mutation that a lot of women don't know that they have. I only know that I have it because my sister had it. Anyways, I'm learning a lot about it. I'm about to learn a lot more because I got all these tests done. So I think it's something I should share because a lot of people have it and don't know they have it. Anyways, I'm going to this holistic doctor today, and then I just happened to have the vaccine right after that appointment. So I'm at the holistic doctor. I'm at the holistic doctor, And I really respect her. She's great. She's helped me so much with different things like migraines and all this other stuff. And I'm like, after this, and I don't even know why I wasn't thinking, because she's a holistic doctor. She wasn't even wearing a mask. And I was like, I'm going to get my vaccine after this. And she was like, do you want to have kids anytime soon? And I was like,
oh my God.
I was like, yeah, I mean, I see that in my near future. And she was like, yeah, there's a lot of research about infertility and these vaccines, which I mean is true. There is that research.
But there's also other research.
Yes, but there's also other research and everything. And like I had talked to my gynecologist about this, and she had encouraged me to get the vaccine, because she said if you were to get pregnant and get COVID, it's way like you have a much higher chance of it getting really. Anyways, I don't know. She recommended that I get it beforehand. So I was like then second guessing myself, because here I've just talked to this holistic doctor who I respect, and I'm driving on the way to get
it,
the vaccine, and because she told me when I left, she was like, listen, I'm not trying to make you feel bad, go with your gut, but I just I would feel bad if I didn't tell you this, from what I know and everything.
Which, by the way, it's already for some people it's an easy decision. It's just easy and whatever. But like we're really analytical and like
we researched.
We want to know what we're putting in our bodies.
But we wanted to do the right thing and help and be our part.
Yeah.
Do our part.
And we had a major months of thinking about this, going back and forth, and we made that decision to do it and felt 100% excited about it. And then right before your appointment,
I know. And so I'm driving there and I call my husband, Maris, and I'm like, listen, I know I really want a kid. I know you want a kid, but they're saying that, like this fertility and she told me this and blah, blah, blah.
But we're trying to do our part.
I know. And he was like, okay, it's going to be fine. Just do it. I feel good about it. Like, do you feel good about it? And I was like, yeah, but I'm scared now. Like, I had been feeling so excited and good, and then I talked to
cones. They're calling me forward.
Yes, and I was just so torn. But then I called Haylee because they keep you waiting for 15 minutes after you get it to make sure there's nothing bad happens. And I called her and I was like, I feel like I did the right thing. I think I did.
And I was like, you did. I know it. You're going to have a kid, and so am I. I know it.
We're going to have a kid.
We're not going to have a kid together.
No, we'll each individually have a kid.
It'll feel like.
We'll raise it together.
Yeah.
So, anyways, that's been our experience. We'll tell you if we get sick from the second dose.
Oh, yeah.
Really? Well, because listen, this is what I've heard. Is that, because some people are like, oh, maybe it's Moderna that makes you more sick, or Pfizer or whatever. But actually, I read, and I think my dad told me this too. Yeah, my dad told me this too. He said that he read this as well, that younger people, because we have stronger immune systems, we're fighting it really hard. So we get really sick on the second dose because it's a strong dose, and our immune systems start fighting so strong. And so it makes us have all those symptoms, right, of sickness. And older people,
which is a good thing.
It's a great thing. And then older older people have typically weaker immune systems, and so it's not as strong of an effect. So I will be curious if we get sick.
Yeah, I really, although I want to have a strong immune system, I really hope I don't feel bad.
I gotta tell you, one of the teachers at my school, she's young. She's a young teacher with me. She told me that she blacked out.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, she got so sick, and then she was feeling so bad that her legs buckled from under and she blacked out.
Cool. I'll be sure to sit on the couch the whole day.
That's what she said. She's like, I stayed on the couch. So we'll see.
I've also heard other stories too. I've heard like a combo of all different experiences.
Everyone's different. Yes,
we assume that you care about our experience, so we'll share it.
Well, I just think maybe people are curious about it who haven't had it or whatever. So we'll keep you posted on that second dose. But we're so glad that we're a Dear Friend podcast.
I know. And another thing that's not going to change, we're still going to do our pledge.
Oh, crap. Yeah. Here we go.
All right. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States in America, and rarely in public is where we stand, One friendship.
Not for long though.
I know,
we're
because you have to be in public.
One friendship, under God, indivisible, live permanent, and just us for all. This is your dear friends, Haylee and Amanda. Thank you for listening, dear friend, and we will share an episode with you next week.
I know, y'all go subscribe and tell your friends, your dear friends, and leave a review if you want to. It helps us, and
We hope you get something out of this and enjoy it, because we enjoy sharing it with you. So have a great week.
live party.